The film begins with the narration of a girl reciting a beautiful poem. However, the content of the poem contradicts what is being shown, as on a dark and cold night in a snowy field, a panicked girl is seen running barefoot. The next day, in the Wind River Indian Reservation area, a man is camouflaged among the bushes and snow. The man, named Corey, is hunting down some wolves that have been preying on the local livestock. Corey is a hunter, but is not a local Indian resident. Afterward, Corey goes to the town of Lander to visit his Native American ex-wife. Despite no longer being married, they still have a good relationship, and Corey's purpose in visiting is to pick up their son, Casey, as his mother will be out of town for a few days. Corey then takes Casey to Wind River to visit his grandparents, as Corey received a call from his former in-laws. Corey's ex-father-in-law informs him about a predator that has been attacking one of their bison, requesting Corey's help as he works for the Department of Fish and Wildlife as a game warden. When they arrive at the location, Corey notices footprints on the ground and identifies the predator as a mountain lion and its 2 cubs. After confirming this, Corey sets off to hunt down the mountain lion mother in the snowy hills. However, his search is interrupted when they find human footprints and blood stains in the snow. Feeling suspicious, Corey decides to follow the tracks and discovers a person lying on the snow not far from there. Close to the tracks, Corey finally finds the body of a girl whose mouth is bleeding, her forehead is injured, and she is missing her shoes. The girl is the same one seen at the beginning of the film. Corey immediately reports the discovery of the girl's body to the tribal police. However, Police Chief Bob explains that the location is within the reservation, so they have to wait for the FBI to arrive and handle the case. Corey initially intends to track the left-behind footprints before a snowstorm covers them, but Ben does not allow it until the FBI arrives. After a while, in the midst of a snowstorm, an FBI agent named Jane arrives. Initially, Jane wants to head straight to the crime scene. However, coming from Las Vegas, Jane is unprepared for the cold weather, and pushing herself to the location could lead to her freezing to death. Corey then reminds Jane that she is close to freezing. Luckily, they are at Corey's former in-law's house, so they can provide Jane with warm clothing. When Jane puts on the clothes, Corey is momentarily stunned, as it turns out the clothing belonged to his late daughter. Before departing, Corey asks Casey to stay with his grandparents. After some time, Corey, Jane, and Ben arrive at the location where the body has been marked by the police. Corey explains that the deceased is an 18-year-old girl named Natalie. While examining Natalie's body, Jane notices stains on her pants, suspecting that Natalie had also been sexually assaulted. Therefore, Jane questions Corey about Natalie's whereabouts. Corey mentions that Natalie likely ran and mentions a house that is 5.6 kilometers away and an oil drilling facility 8 kilometers from the location. However, during the winter, the drilling location is closed. Based on the tracks left by Natalie, Corey believes that the girl must have run in minus 20-degree weather at night, causing her lungs to burst, leading to coughing up blood and ultimately her death. However, Corey cannot estimate how far Natalie ran barefoot. Nevertheless, Corey is confident that someone would run beyond their abilities to survive. Realizing Corey's skills, Jane asks for his help in the investigation. The next day, in the autopsy room, a forensic medical expert provides Jane with the same explanation regarding Natalie's cause of death as Corey did earlier. He also confirms that Natalie had been sexually assaulted. Unfortunately, the condition prevents the medical expert from reporting it as a homicide case, so Jane cannot request the FBI team to investigate. According to Jane, such cases fall under the jurisdiction of the tribal police, so she may be recalled to Vegas, as this is beyond the FBI's jurisdiction. The next day, Ben accompanies Jane to visit Natalie's parents. Natalie's father, Martin, explains that Natalie had a boyfriend, but he doesn't know his name because Natalie kept it a secret. Martin's somewhat unsympathetic statement makes Jane view him as an irresponsible father. However, Martin asserts that he chose to trust his 18-year-old daughter and has no right to control the life of an adult. When trying to meet Natalie's mother, Jane is shocked to find the woman deeply saddened by her daughter's death and self-harming. At the same time, Corey arrives and Martin pours out his grief in Corey's comforting embrace as they both share the pain of losing their beloved daughters in a similar manner. Corey attempts to console Martin and advises him to embrace the pain, as avoiding it would erase all memories of his daughter. Martin then tells Corey that his son now lives with the homeowner closest to the crime scene and suspects that the homeowner is connected to Natalie's death. After learning that Corey is involved in the investigation, Martin asks Corey to avenge Natalie's death. Following this meeting, Corey, Jane, and Ben go to the house nearest to the crime scene. In the yard, Corey notices snowmobile tracks leading to the hills, increasing his suspicion. While Corey walks around the house, Jane and Ben attempt to knock on the door and are greeted by a man named Sam, who is the homeowner. When they inquire about Natalie's younger brother, who is known to live there, Sam instead sprays them with pepper spray. Meanwhile, two men intended to escape through the back door of Sam's house, but Corey quickly apprehended them using a shovel. Meanwhile, Jane forced open the door and, with blurred vision, tried to locate Sam when suddenly Sam fired a shot. Unfortunately, this resulted in Sam's death as he was hit by Jane's gunfire. Afterward, Ben and Jane went out to meet Corey, who had successfully restrained the two men attempting to escape. Corey explained that one of the men he had tied up was Martin's son named Chip. When they asked about Natalie, Chip accidentally revealed that Natalie was living with a white man. When they informed Chip about what had happened to Natalie, he was shocked and couldn't hold back his tears, indicating that the alcohol addicts in Sam's house, including Chip, were unaware of anything. According to Corey, the tracks led to the hills, but there was something strange because there were no return tracks from the snowmobile. Corey concluded that the perpetrator did not come from Sam's house and urged Jane to follow the tracks before they got covered by snow. However, to reach the top of the hill, they had to continue on foot. Eventually, they accidentally discovered the body of a man being devoured by an eagle, and they immediately reported the discovery. That evening, Ben informed Corey that Chip was reluctant to reveal the name of Natalie's boyfriend and preferred to go to jail. Hearing this, Corey tried to talk to Chip, whom he had known since Chip was a child. Unfortunately, Chip brought up Corey's inability to protect his own daughter, triggering Corey's anger towards him. However, Chip realized Corey's intention to find his sister's killer, and eventually, Chip revealed the identity of Natalie's boyfriend, named Matt. According to Chip, Matt was a security officer at the drilling facility and was the same age as Corey. After receiving this information, Corey conveyed it to Ben. Upon hearing this, Ben asked Corey to accompany him and Jane to the drilling facility the next day. Corey did not refuse, but he indicated that he had a different plan. When Corey returned home, Jane stopped by his house and informed him about the identity of the male body they found, which turned out to be Matt, Natalie's boyfriend. With Matt's identity revealed, accusations could no longer be directed at him. As they entered Corey's house, Jane saw a photo of Corey's daughter named Emily. Corey then recounted the heartbreaking story that befell Emily, a story eerily similar to Natalie's experience. 3 years ago, Corey, who was then working as a clothing merchant, stayed overnight with his wife in a hotel due to a snowstorm. Meanwhile, Emily stayed home with Casey. Unexpectedly, Emily took the opportunity to invite her friends over. Unfortunately, not only did Emily's friends come, but also some strangers. The next morning, Corey received a call from Natalie, who was Emily's friend, informing him that Emily had disappeared. Several days later, Emily's body was found 32 kilometers from their home, torn apart by wolves. The murderer of Emily remains a mystery, and this incident motivated Corey to become a hunter. Perhaps to hunt down the wolves that preyed on his daughter, or perhaps to hunt down her possible killer. This also drove Corey to assist Jane in uncovering Natalie's murderer, so that similar incidents would not happen again in the future. A while later, Jane saw a poem that had been written by Emily. This explained that the girl reciting the poem at the beginning of the film was Emily. The next day, Corey went to the location where Matt's body was found to trace the snowmobile tracks he had seen earlier. Meanwhile, Jane and Ben, along with several police officers, decided to go to the drilling facility. When they arrived at the hill, Corey unexpectedly found the tracks of a mountain lion and its 2 cubs that had been preying on his former in-law's bison. Therefore, Corey attempted to follow those tracks. Meanwhile, Jane and the police officers who arrived at the drilling facility were greeted by the chief of security named Byrne. When asked about Matt's whereabouts, Byrne claimed not to know, as Matt had disappeared after a fight with his girlfriend about 3 days ago. However, Jane became suspicious when she saw bruises on Byrne's face and the faces of other personnel who were present. They confessed that the bruises were from hitting tree branches while patrolling on a snowmobile. After that, Jane requested permission to inspect Matt's trailer. Meanwhile, on the hill, Corey finally found the mountain lion mother and her 2 cubs hiding in a den. Instead of killing the 3 animals, Corey decided to spare them. But not far from there, Corey found snowmobile tracks again. When Corey used his binoculars, he realized that the tracks led to the drilling facility. This indicated that the security guards deliberately brought Matt's body to the hill and intentionally misled the police by leaving snowmobile tracks through Sam's house, who had previously died in a shootout with Jane. Meanwhile, Jane was on her way to Matt's trailer. However, Jane, who still felt suspicious, tried to provoke a reaction from the security guards by claiming that Natalie was still alive and had reported Matt's disappearance. Unexpectedly, Byrne provided a surprising response, admitting that he had heard on the radio that they had found Natalie's body. Hearing this, Jane became even more suspicious because the identity of the body found had never been mentioned on the radio. At the same time, a police officer suddenly realized that the security guards were surrounding them, causing tension to rise. However, as an FBI agent, Jane asserted that they were the only 2 authorized officers in the conservation area, so she asked them all to calm down and lower their weapons. Once the situation de-escalated, Jane walked back to Matt's trailer. On the other hand, Corey was unsuccessful in contacting Ben to warn them, so he had to prepare his weapon and position himself from the hill. When Jane tried to knock on Matt's trailer door, suddenly the scene shifted to the night before the incident. On that night, Matt opened the door for Natalie, who came to visit. After a warm reunion, they discussed their future plans to move away from the area. Matt turned out to be a former member of the United States Navy. In the midst of their conversation, unexpectedly, Matt's friends entered his trailer, so Natalie quickly closed the partition. However, they had caught a glimpse of Natalie before, so one of Matt's friends named Pete immediately opened the partition and began to tease both of them. Initially, Matt's other friends, including Byrne, considered Pete's actions a joke and were reluctant to join in. However, Pete forcibly approached Natalie, prompting Matt to push him out. This angered Pete, and he retaliated against Matt, leading to a physical altercation. This resulted in Matt having to beat him up. This caused Matt's other friends to restrain him, leading to chaos. Unexpectedly, Byrne attacked Natalie and Matt with an iron rod until they were injured and unconscious. When she regained consciousness, Natalie found herself being assaulted by Pete and the others. Matt, who had also regained consciousness, once again attacked Pete with the last of his strength. Natalie witnessed Matt being severely beaten by Pete, leaving her helpless and forced to escape. And that was the moment when Natalie saved herself in the snow, resulting in her death. Back in the present, Jane was still knocking on the door, but Ben suddenly warned her to step away from the door when he heard a message from Corey. Unfortunately, before Jane could react, a bullet that pierced the door sent Jane flying. In the end, there was a shootout between the security guards and the police. Ultimately, the security guards managed to eliminate all the police officers after Pete used an automatic weapon from inside the trailer. Fortunately, Jane survived because of the bulletproof vest she was wearing. She tried to attack Byrne, but unfortunately, Byrne quickly disarmed her and intended to finish her off. However, to their surprise, Corey, camouflaged in the snow, appeared and shot Byrne and the other guards one by one. Upon seeing all his comrades dead, Pete fled. Shortly thereafter, Corey approached Jane and provided first aid. Corey told Jane that he would hunt down Pete, but not to capture him, but to kill him. After running for a while in the hills, Pete heard a noise but didn't see anyone. As he turned around unexpectedly, Corey appeared and beat him unconscious. Upon regaining consciousness, Pete found himself tied at the hilltop without shoes, with his toes showing signs of frostbite. Corey then promised him a second chance if he admitted his actions. With no choice, Pete confessed to killing Matt, along with his companions after assaulted Natalie. After the confession, Corey kept his promise to let Pete go. But Corey told Pete that Natalie ran 9 kilometers without shoes on the snow, so Corey asked Pete to do the same. Initially, Pete refused, so Corey fired a warning shot, forcing Pete to comply. But before Pete could run far, he died, as the sub-zero air caused his lungs to explode, just like what happened to Natalie. Although the group was not the killers of his own daughter, it helped heal the wound of loss that Corey had been feeling. After the incident, Corey visited Jane at the hospital. Jane felt lucky to have survived, but Corey said that luck didn't apply in the conservation area because their one only had the choice to survive. Hearing that, Jane cried, imagining Natalie running 9 kilometers on the snow to save her life. After that, Corey visited Martin and found him sitting with a deathly look on his face. Martin admitted that he had initially intended to do the unthinkable until Chip, who was at the police station, called him to pick him up. This reminded Martin that he still had another child besides Natalie. To calm Martin down, Corey revealed how all the men responsible for Natalie's death had been executed. Corey also told Martin that the man who violated Natalie died in the same way as Natalie. At the end of the film, a narration explains that the film was inspired by a true story, where no one knows how many Native American women have gone missing in the Wind River area. Moral lesson from the story: if you see a snowstorm and someone running barefoot in the cold, don't assume they're training for a winter marathon, because it might not end well.